So imagine if you could make $72 million a year in your business, but using someone else's business model. And yes, this is totally legit and totally legal. And this guy, Paul, did it. Paul Reiser, formerly known as the Sonic Guy on YouTube, along with his business partners, built a $72 million a year franchise empire owning 38 locations across 4 different states. Let me introduce you to Paul.
We were able to grow our business to 38 Sonic franchises. We own the land, building, and of course the franchise. It was a family business, 5 of us partners. And after 45 years, we sold it a year and a half ago. We sold the entire package, all the business, land and building in one big package. And it was very successful. And we were able to retire 5 family members successfully at a ripe young age.
So how much money can you make owning a Sonic? And why did Paul and his business partners decide to own the land and the building instead of just leasing it? Now we're going to cover that, but first let's go over some of the numbers of what these Sonic locations make. So there are over 3,500 Sonic locations, with 300 of them being corporate locations and over 3,000 of them being franchise locations, and they aren't the cheapest to get open either. Now the average standalone Sonic franchise ranges from $1.7 to $3.3 million to get open. Whoo! So what does that type of price tag earn you? So I dug up Sonic's public records, and in 2022, the average Sonic franchise location did $1.6 million a year in sales, with the highest performing location doing about $4.7 million in sales. Now, there are 2 important strategies that you need to know about that Paul used here. The first is that Paul and his business partners leveraged a franchise model to build their business. If you aren't familiar with what a franchise is, it's simply when a company, aka a franchisor, gives the rights to a franchise owner, aka franchisee, to use their name, trademarks, products, and business system. So as an example, McDonald's is the franchisor and someone who owns a McDonald's is the franchisee. But here's the interesting part. Did you know that there's over 4,000 franchises in the US alone? And although most people think of food franchises, there are actually franchises in almost every single industry that you can imagine. Companies like Ace Hardware, the Goddard School, Planet Fitness, Pet Supplies Plus, Jiffy Lube, Redbox are all franchise businesses. So all Paul and his business partners had to do was secure the capital and then follow the proven blueprint that the franchisor, in this case Sonic, had put into place. Now Paul's start was anything but glamorous. So how did he get into the fancy world of Sonic drive-through franchises?
My dad started as a franchisee in 1977, so we were in the business for 45 years. When I took over as president, and when I left, wandered about, did the prodigal son deal for a while. When I came back, and my brother and sisters and I started the company, a management company, in 2001. That's when I became president. And we were able to grow from 13 to 38 Sonics over the next 10 years, working together as a team. So yeah, so I was really in it for 30 years that I was running it, but I was in it for 45 years because I was car hopping when I was 9 years old. We're that family that you see the guy owns the place and the husband and wife are in there and all the kids are like cleaning tables. And so I was car hopping when I was 12. I made really good tips. I was a cute kid. So, and luckily in the early 80s, labor laws were a lot more lax back then.
Now, one of the reasons Paul and his business partners were able to sell the company portfolio for such a large amount was because of their decision to own the land and the building instead of leasing it. Now, here's why this is particularly interesting. McDonald's is famous for owning the land themselves and then renting it back to the franchisee, aka the franchise owner, which means McDonald's has even more control over their franchise owners. And a lot of people don't know this, is that owning the real estate themselves has made McDonald's one of the biggest real estate companies in the world with an estimated $30 billion portfolio. Okay, Tariq, so what does McDonald's becoming one of the largest real estate companies in the world have to do with my friend Paul making millions of dollars owning 38 Sonic franchise locations? Well, before we go into that, here's some important advice from Paul.
And running one is a whole lot different than how you run 38. You know, and it depends on the franchisee, the franchisor, whether you can even own the real estate. You get into McDonald's corporate owns the real estate, you own the franchise, the business. You know, people need to understand the difference in when you become a franchisee, franchises usually have company-owned stores and franchise-owned stores. So the franchisor, like Sonic, owns 38 or 360 maybe Sonics that are owned by the corporate. Those are corporate stores. And then there's another 3,000 that are owned by franchisees. So when I own a franchise, I own that business. It's my business. And a lot of people think that the franchise is kind of your boss, or the franchise might help you out if you get in a bind, and that doesn't happen. It's your business. You're paying a royalty to the franchise so you can use their sign, their name, their recipes, their marketing, which is awesome. But if you can't pay your note, if you go in the hole, it's your problem. You have to pay that back. Okay. You get to run the business largely the way you want.
You see, everyone out there is saying, buy real estate, invest in real estate. And although this video is not meant to compare the real estate to other businesses or investments, but what if you could get the best of both worlds? So that's exactly how Paul and his business partners did it. By owning the land and the buildings, it allowed them to cash out and then sell for amounts that no business owner would be able to if they didn't own the land and the building. Now, Paul and I sat down for an entire hour-long podcast digging into all of the details on how he built his business, and he breaks down the strategy. So if you're into that kind of thing, you can watch the full episode on my Franchise Empire Show YouTube channel. We'll leave that link down below for you. Now, here's the thing. Whether you want to own a franchise one day or not, you can still use this exact strategy of owning the land your business is on. So here's Paul breaking down how he and his business partners pulled it off and what you need to consider if you want to use this strategy.
But some franchises, like Sonic, you can own your real estate. McDonald's, if you get into a Chick-fil-A isn't really technically a franchise. I know you and I have both made videos about that. You don't own the real estate. But if you can own the real estate, then you have to choose, do I want to own the real estate, or do I want to have more cash available to me to open up more franchises? So a lot of people then choose to buy or rent based on how fast they want to expand. And if you have something that thrives in a strip mall, a strip center, it's a lot cheaper to go into a business where you can put it in an end cap in a strip center than to buy your own real estate.
So what most people don't know is that you can actually get a 25-year SBA loan on the land or building purchase that's connected to a business you own, compared to just a 10-year loan when you're getting an SBA loan just to start your business up. And SBA stands for Small Business Administration, by the way. So the longer the payment terms, the lower your payment is, and the easier it is to make those monthly payments. Now, owning the land isn't enough to build a 38-location franchise empire in multiple states doing $72 million a year. One of the keys to Paul's success was that their stores generated on average 30% more sales than the other Sonic franchise locations. So in 2019, the average franchise location was doing about $1.3 million in sales, which means Paul's stores on average were doing over $1.7 million in sales. And they did this by having a really strong focus on treating their team well and creating a really exciting bonus plan for their employees. Check out this bonus plan and how it worked.
We had 5 criteria, 3 of them focused on growing sales, 2 of them focused on maintaining profit. And you could get up to 5% of your profit per criteria. So a manager could make 25% of the bottom line each and every month, or they might make 0. If they made 0 though, I can't afford them because they're not making me any money. My managers that made the most money obviously made me the most money. And they appreciated that. They knew every month, they're like, okay, I got to watch my labor. I got to watch my food costs. I got to watch my mystery shots. They knew exactly what they needed to focus on. They knew exactly what their scores needed to be. And if they did that, their sales and profit would grow and they would get nice bonuses.
Now, one thing I was really curious about is why Paul continued to open more and more Sonics, and why not diversify and get into another business?
So it makes a lot of sense to pivot into another business when you get into something like a Sonic or something that's a large franchise, and you can only put so many in an area. Once you've completely penetrated your market with your brand, now if you don't want to go off somewhere far away to start building more of them, it makes a good sense to all of a sudden now I go into a chicken or something different that I can fill in the spots in between. But what we had a good system. We had a lot of people trained in place that knew how to run Sonics. We had all our software, everything was focused towards Sonic. So it was a lot easier for us to build a new Sonic and take a manager that already knew how to run a Sonic. So it made sense for us just to continue to expand out with Sonic.
Okay, well that makes a lot of sense. But they ended up owning Sonics in 4 different states. So how did they plan their expansion strategy?
And a great thing about a franchise is, where is a good place to expand? And they say, well, South Louisiana, South Alabama is a good area. They gave us a few others that were really far away. So we decided to move to South Alabama, and we kind of started all over. many years ago.
Having owned a couple of food service franchises myself, I was really itching to ask Paul what he thought about the profit margins or lack thereof of food service businesses overall, because they are known to have low profit margins. Now, if you want to know what he said, you can watch the full podcast episode here and watch Paul and I dive into profit margins, having family as business partners, building and managing a team, and other obstacles and failures that he faced and how he dealt with them. Don't forget to subscribe before you go watch it, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.